Okay, picture this for a second. You close your eyes and you're finally there. Hawaii. The warm trade winds are hitting your face. You have a cold drink in your hand. Maybe you're watching a sea turtle glide through that crystal clear water. It's the universal dream, right? We all have that specific screensaver in our heads.
It is the dream. It really is the archetype of paradise. But for a lot of people, the reality ends up looking drastically different.
How so?
Well, instead of that turtle, they're staring at the brake lights of a rental car, just stuck in gridlock traffic. Or they show up to a hidden gem beach they found on TikTok only to find it's, fenced off, closed, or just unsafe because the surf is 10 feet high that day.
And that disconnect is exactly what we're tackling today. We're doing a deep dive into the reality of planning a Hawaii vacation in this age of, well, information overload. We've got a stack of really interesting material here, primarily centered around a guide from a local Oahu operator called Halia Private Tours. The document is titled, What Most Visitors Get Wrong, and honestly, reading through it, I felt a little targeted.
It's a bit of a wake-up call, isn't it? And the mission for this deep dive isn't just to help you plan a trip to Hawaii. It's to fundamentally look at how we consume travel information. We're contrasting the viral advice, the stuff you see on social media and AI-generated blogs, with the on-the-ground logistical reality from locals who actually live there.
Which we need, I think, because most of us, myself included, think we're great researchers. We see a reel, we hit save, we read a top 10 list, and we think, okay, itinerary done.
Yeah.
But this source material suggests that specific habit is actually what ruins the vacation.
It's a classic case of what psychologists call the illusory truth effect.
Okay, that sounds a little heavy for a travel discussion. Break
Yeah.
that down for us. What is that in this context?
It's a cognitive bias where if you hear the same piece of information repeated enough times, you start to believe it's true regardless of accuracy. In travel, think about those top 10 things to do in Oahu lists. You see the same 3 beaches, the same hike, spot on, like 10 different blogs. So your brain just shortcuts and says, well, this must be the best place.
But isn't there some wisdom in the crowd? If everyone is suggesting it, it has to be good, right?
Not necessarily. The source points out that a massive chunk of those blogs are now written by AI or by influencers who visited once for 3 days. They're just scraping and recycling the same old content. So the truth is actually just noise.
And the result isn't just generic advice.
No, it's that it creates a bottleneck. You get hundreds of tourists descending on the exact same spot at the exact same time.
So we're essentially shepherding ourselves into overcrowding.
Exactly. And there's a technical failure here, too. The source mentions that AI tools and viral lists lack real-time awareness. Think about it. ChatGPT doesn't know if the tide is high right now.
That's a crucial distinction.
An AI model can write a beautiful description of a hidden beach based on data from 2021, but it can't see the ocean. It doesn't know that today the wind is blowing 20 miles per hour from the east, making that beach sandy and miserable. It doesn't know that the parking lot was closed for construction last week. The source highlights this contrast. AI gives you a draft outline based on static data, but a local guide knows that the surf is dangerous today.
There was a stat in the source that I found really telling. It said nearly 2/3 of Americans rely primarily on their own research for trips. We are a nation of DIY planners.
We are, and usually that's a strength. But in an environment as dynamic as Hawaii, an island in the middle of the Pacific with microclimates relying on static information is just risky. You might be planning your day around a photo you saw on Instagram, not realizing that photo was taken at a specific time of year with a specific lens.
By someone who knew exactly where to stand to crop out the 50 other people standing right next to them.
Exactly. We're building itineraries based on aesthetics rather than logistics.
Okay, let's shift from the digital traps to the physical ones. Because even if you pick the right places, getting there is a whole other beast. The source talks a lot about Hawaii time, and not in a good way.
No, not the chill, relax, everything runs late stereotype. This is the why have we been in this rental car for 2 hours kind of Hawaii time.
Yeah.
This is a massive friction point for visitors. The guide notes that locals measure travel in minutes, not miles. You might look at a map of Oahu and think, oh, it's only 30 miles from Waikiki to the North Shore. That's what, a 45-minute drive?
In most places, 30 miles is 30 minutes, maybe 40 on a bad day.
In Hawaii, depending on the time of day or school traffic or just looky-loos, people slowing down to look at big waves, that drive can take an hour and a half extra.
An hour and a half on top of the original time.
Easily. And that is what the DIY planner misses. They stack their itinerary, 9 a.m. hike, 11 beach, 1 p.m. lunch on the other side of the island. They don't account for the fact that on many parts of the island, there's one road in and one road out.
So if there's a fender bender or road work, the whole system just locks up.
Then you are not making lunch. You are sitting in paradise, staring at a bumper. And this leads to frustration, which is the opposite of why you flew 5 hours to get there.
Okay, so if the map apps are lying to us about time, or at least being optimistic, how do we actually schedule this? The source has a specific recommendation called the morning rule. Is this just early bird gets the worm, or is there more to it?
Oh, there is actual meteorological science behind this one. The rule is simple. Do your main activities in the morning.
I have to be honest, when I'm on vacation, setting an alarm feels like a punishment. Why is the morning so much better?
It comes down to the trade winds and the heat. In Hawaii, the weather patterns are fairly consistent. Mornings almost always have calmer ocean conditions and clearer views. As the land heats up during the day, that heat rises, clouds form over the mountains, that's orographic lift, and the trade winds pick up. By afternoon, the ocean gets choppier.
So if I book a snorkeling tour at 2 because I wanted to sleep in.
You're likely dealing with rougher water, lower visibility, and way more heat. And going back to traffic, that peaks in the afternoon too. The source explicitly says that afternoons bring more traffic, heat, surf changes, and potential closures. If you want that glass-like water you see in the brochures, you have to wake up for it.
Okay, noted. Coffee first, adventure second. Now, another logistical headache the source warns about is the booking window. I feel like I'm the type of person who would land in Honolulu and say, okay, let's go see Pearl Harbor tomorrow.
And that is exactly what the source calls the #1 mistake.
Ouch. I feel seen.
You're definitely not alone. But here's the reality check. High-demand sites like the USS Arizona Memorial at Pearl Harbor or Koloa Ranch, where they filmed Jurassic Park, these are not places you can just walk into anymore. The guide recommends booking these weeks in advance.
Wow. That requires some serious foresight.
It does, especially if you're traveling during summer or the holidays. The source notes that waiting until you arrive often means everything is sold out. You end up scrambling or just missing out entirely.
So it's about securing the must-dos, the big rocks, so you can be flexible with the sand around them.
That's a great way to put it. Secure the big rocks, let the sand fill in.
Speaking of securing things, let's talk about money. There's a section in here about the tour industry ecosystem that felt a little bit like a conspiracy theory, but a very plausible one. It talks about the concierge economy.
Yes. This is something most travelers never see coming.
Right, because you walk into your hotel lobby and there's a friendly person at a desk offering to help you book your tours. It feels like a free service, a perk of the hotel. But the source says, be careful.
It's important to understand the incentives here. The source explains that many concierge desks are outsourced. They are often pushing options that pay them the highest commissions.
So they're not necessarily recommending the best tour for me.
They're recommending the one that pays the rent on the desk. And often, that means steering you toward a large cattle call bus tour. High volume, high commission.
Cattle call is a pretty visceral description. I'm picturing being herded onto a bus with 50 other people.
That is pretty close to the reality. The source describes the downsides vividly. Long pickup routes where you spend the first hour just stopping at other hotels to pick people up rigid schedules and being stuck with activities you just don't care about.
But isn't the big bus cheaper? Economy of scale. If I'm a family of 5, I'm assuming the private tour is out of my league.
You would think so, but the source challenges that math. They argue that for families or groups, paying per person on a bus can actually cost more than a flat-rate private tour. Let's just do the math. If you're paying $150 a head for a mediocre bus tour for a family of 5, you're spending $750.
Wow. Yeah, when you multiply it out, it stings.
Exactly. You could often book a private vehicle for a similar total price, sometimes even less, but the value proposition is completely different because you get total control.
And you don't have to stop at the kickback stops.
Yeah.
The source mentioned these, and I realized I've totally been a victim to this.
The cultural stops that are actually just gift shops.
Yes. You're trapped there for 40 minutes looking at overpriced magnets because the tour operator gets a cut of what you buy. It's infuriating.
It wastes your precious vacation time. The private alternative is about flexibility. You can say, I don't want to see the magnets, I want to see more turtles. Or, hey, it's raining on this side of the island, let's pivot and go to the west side where it's sunny.
That ability to pivot seems crucial given the weather we talked about. So what's the balance? If I go private, do I book a guide for every single day? That seems exhausting too.
No, and the source actually advises against that. They suggest a sweet spot for planning. Book 2 to 3 tours on a week-long trip. Maybe 1 cultural historical, 1 outdoor adventure, and 1 food or sightseeing.
So you have structure, but you aren't overscheduled.
Exactly. It prevents burnout. You need days where you just sit on the sand and do absolutely nothing.
I want to shift gears a bit here because the source material isn't just about logistics and money. There's a really strong thread about, I guess you'd call it soul, about respecting the place you're visiting. There are these images in the source material that really drive this home. There's one of a sea turtle swimming near the USS Arizona Memorial in Pearl Harbor. It's this beautiful, serene shot. And then there's another of monk seals sleeping on the beach in Waikiki.
Those images are powerful because they show nature persisting even in the busiest, most concrete-heavy places. But the source is very clear on the rule regarding wildlife. Do not touch.
It seems so obvious, but we see people doing it on social media all the time.
We do, and that goes back to the illusory truth we started with. You see a viral video of someone swimming right next to a turtle, maybe reaching out, and you think, oh, that's what you do in Hawaii. That's the experience.
But it's not.
No, it's harassment, it's illegal, and it stresses the animal significantly. The source emphasizes keeping a respectful distance. It's about observing, not interacting.
There's also a mention of cultural mistakes that visitors make without realizing it, like entering restricted sites or climbing on walls. And rock stacking. I feel like rock stacking is controversial because people think they're making art.
Right, they think it's Zen or spiritual. But in Hawaii, moving rocks can be culturally insensitive. Ecologically, it's damaging.
How so? It's just rocks.
You're disturbing the habitat for bugs, crustaceans, and small creatures that live in those crevices. It's a leave-no-trace violation disguised as creativity. The source is clear. Leave the rocks where they are.
Okay, so don't stack rocks, don't touch turtles. But the source does mention a way to positively interact with the land. Regenerative tourism. This is a buzzword I'm hearing more often. What does it look like in practice here?
It's moving from the mindset of do no harm to do some good. The source highlights activities like planting native Hawaiian trees, beach cleanups, or invasive species removal.
Is this something people actually want to do on vacation? Work?
Surprisingly, yes. It connects you to the place in a way that sitting at a resort bar never will. There's this great image of a be careful sign in the source material, a yellow diamond with a cute bee drawing. It's a metaphor for the whole ecosystem. Agriculture relies on bees, the land relies on balance. Participating in these positive impact tours helps restore that balance.
And here's the kicker for the pragmatists listening, because I know some people are thinking, I'm not paying to pull weeds. The source notes there's a financial incentive too.
Yes. Being a good person can get you a discount. The source mentions group savings of $100 to $300 for booking these impact tours. It's a win-win. You offset your carbon footprint, you connect with the land, and you keep a little extra cash in your pocket.
That is fantastic. I love the idea of leaving a place better than you found it. Okay, we've covered the traps, the logistics, the money, and the ethics. But let's say I'm ready to book. I'm sitting at my computer, credit card in hand. How do I actually vet these companies? Because everyone says they're the best.
This is where the rubber meets the road. The advice here is to ignore the overall star rating for a second and look at the dates of the reviews.
Why the dates?
The source suggests looking specifically at the last 60 to 90 days. A company might have 5,000 five-star reviews, but if the bulk of them are from 2019, that doesn't tell you how they're operating today.
That's a great point. Post-pandemic, a lot has changed.
Exactly. Have they lost their best guides? Are the vehicles run down? Are they understaffed? You need current data to know if the quality is still there.
And what about ownership? The source mentions local ownership a few times. Is that just a support local business pitch, or does it impact the experience?
It directly impacts the experience. This connects back to the information trap. Locally owned operators are on the ground. They're not a call center in another country. The source suggests verifying local ownership because those operators provide better insight into current conditions. They know if the road to the trailhead washed out yesterday.
They have their ear to the ground.
Right. And the final tip from the quick action steps in the text was about real-time sources. Don't just look at their website's about page. Look at their social media.
But we just said social media is the problem.
It's the problem and the solution depending on how you use it. You're not looking for influencers. You're looking at the operator's own feed. Are they posting updates about current closures? Are they showing what the weather looks like this week?
Ah, I see. So if they're posting a stock photo of a sunset from 2015, that's a red flag. But if they're posting a shaky video saying, hey, heads up, high surf advisory on the North Shore today, that's a green flag.
That's a huge green flag. You want a guide who is engaged with the reality of the island right now, not just selling the fantasy of it.
It really all comes back to that difference between the digital fantasy and the physical reality.
It does. There's an image in the source material that I think perfectly captures what we're aiming for. It's a shot of a couple sitting on a rock wall at the Hilton, just watching the sunset. It isn't staged, it isn't filtered to death. It looks quiet, peaceful.
And there's another one of kayakers under a bridge on the North Shore, just paddling on calm water.
Those moments are the goal. But, and this is the key takeaway, you cannot get to that moment of peace if you spent the last 2 hours screaming at traffic because you didn't know about Hawaii time, or if you're stressed out of your mind because you didn't book your tour in advance and now you can't get into Pearl Harbor.
So the planning, the structure, the rules about mornings, it isn't about being a control freak. It's about building a structure that protects those peaceful moments.
Precisely. It's about removing the friction so you can actually experience the destination.
So what does this all mean for our listener if they're opening a new tab right now to start planning?
It means be skeptical of the viral, look for the local, respect the morning rule even if you want to sleep in. And remember that Hawaii is a living, breathing place with its own rhythm, not just a backdrop for a selfie.
And I would add, maybe leave the rocks alone.
Please leave the rocks alone.
I want to leave everyone with a thought today that stems from that illusory truth concept we talked about. When you're planning your next trip, whether it's Hawaii or anywhere else, ask yourself this. Are you building an itinerary based on what you genuinely enjoy doing? Or are you just trying to recreate a photo you saw on an algorithm?
That is the question. Are you traveling for yourself or for your feed?
Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Safe travels.